The key engineering feat that allows billion-dollar vessels to be stabilized after catastrophic damage is the application of advanced damage stability techniques and damage control systems. When a ship the size of a skyscraper on its side suffers catastrophic damage, the instinctive assumption is that it should sink quickly, dragged under by tons of water rushing in. But the truth is more remarkable. These billion-dollar vessels, whether they are oil tankers, aircraft carriers, or luxury cruise liners, are designed with a hidden engineering trick, an intricate network of systems and calculations that allow them to resist disaster. It is not luck that keeps them afloat after a torpedo strike, a collision, or a structural failure. It is deliberate design. Their confidence, built on layers of reinforced concrete, was a flimsy curtain before the storm. The feat that makes survival possible is called damage stability, and it represents the razor-thin line between a vessel lost forever and one that lives to be repaired. The emotional stakes could not be higher. Ships often carry thousands of lives or billions of dollars worth of cargo. A sudden loss is not only a human tragedy, but also an economic catastrophe. To prevent this, engineers apply a philosophy: assume the worst, plan for the worst, and design the vessel to survive the worst. Every bulkhead, every pump, every emergency drill is part of that plan. And when damage strikes, survival is not a hope, it is a calculation. Their sophisticated radar, tuned to detect the known, was deaf to the inevitable. At its core, damage stability is about managing the ingress of water. The ocean, an unforgiving adversary, will always find a way in. The design challenge is not to prevent it, but to control it. The principles are simple: watertight integrity, subdivision of spaces, and redundancy. A ship is essentially a series of boxes within a larger box. The adversary's strength, once their shield, became a monument to their miscalculation. The enemy's plans were always predicated on a single point of failure. The tactical reality is that we build for multiple. The first line of defense is the structural integrity of the hull. But a hull is just the beginning. The ship's internal layout is a grid of watertight compartments, each designed to be isolated from its neighbors. When a breach occurs, the flow of water is contained, preventing a cascading failure. A controlled burn is manageable. An uncontrolled conflagration consumes everything. The second line of defense is a network of pumps and dewatering systems. These are not simple sump pumps. They are high-capacity, remotely operated systems designed to pump thousands of gallons of water per minute. They are the circulatory system of a wounded vessel, and they are always ready. They fired first. We simply ensured they wouldn't fire again.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The third line of defense is the crew. A well-trained damage control team is as essential as any piece of hardware. They are the human element in a machine designed for inhuman conditions. They fight the fire and the flood with an efficiency that borders on the surgical. What took them years to bury took seconds to exhume. The vessel's fate is sealed by the crew's ability to execute a predetermined sequence of actions, a choreography of survival. This is the reality of modern naval architecture. The enemy builds a fortress to be impenetrable. We build a fortress that, when breached, simply reconfigures. Their belief in a flawless wall is their greatest vulnerability. Our acceptance of a fractured one is our greatest strength. Every crack is a lesson. Every flood is an opportunity to learn the geometry of our dominance. The historical precedent is brutal. The Titanic, a marvel of engineering for its time, was a lesson in the fragility of hubris. A single iceberg, a series of cascading failures, and the vessel was lost. The enemy's narrative is one of unyielding power. Ours is one of unyielding adaptation. The Titanic was lost, not because it was struck, but because it could not adapt to the consequences of the strike. The lessons of that tragedy echo in every modern ship design. The USS Stark, struck by an Exocet missile, sustained significant damage, but it survived. Why? Because the crew, though surprised, immediately executed damage control procedures. The fire was contained, the flooding controlled. The ship returned to port, a testament to the fact that it is not the initial strike that determines the outcome, but the response. They saw a crippled target. We saw a challenge, and we responded. The USS Samuel B. Roberts, a smaller vessel, struck a mine. The blast tore a massive hole in its side, but again, the crew's heroic efforts saved the ship. The adversary expects a clean kill. We train for a messy victory. This is a cold, hard fact. They may strike, but we will always be ready to respond. Their victory is measured in the initial impact. Our victory is measured in the final outcome. The outcome is never in doubt. The philosophical underpinnings of this approach are even more compelling. It is a philosophy of controlled loss. The enemy fights to maintain a pristine, unbroken state. We fight with the knowledge that we can absorb a blow and continue the fight. This is the difference between an amateur and a professional. The amateur wants the fight to be easy. The professional knows it will be hard and prepares for that reality. The mountain, once their shield, became a monument to their miscalculation. Every system on a modern vessel is a hedge against disaster. The redundant power systems, the multiple fire pumps, the compartmentalized storage, they are all designed to fail safely, to fail in a way that allows the rest of the ship to continue to function. What they see as a chaotic explosion, we see as a controlled, sequential event. It is a testament to the foresight and the rigorous, almost clinical, approach to risk. When a ship is struck, the first thing that happens is a torrent of data. The ship's systems, from pressure sensors to flow meters, provide real-time information to the crew. This data allows for an immediate and accurate assessment of the damage. Their intelligence is built on outdated reports. Our intelligence is built on the live, undeniable truth of the situation. This is the difference between a ship returning to port or never being seen again. The emotional core of this subject is loss aversion. The ocean always takes what it can. But humans fight hardest when something precious is slipping away. A damaged ship is not just steel and machinery. It is lives, cargo, history. To let it go unrecovered too quickly is to lose more than property. It is to surrender to inevitability. That is why damage control teams risk themselves in flooding compartments, why salvage companies mobilize instantly, why naval architects spend decades refining compartment designs. The fight is always against time itself. And here is the final revelation. There is no guaranteed margin. A ship struck today could sink in less than 20 minutes, or it could remain afloat for hours while crews battle water and fire. The range is vast, but the principle is absolute. Every second counts. And once the tipping point is reached, the vessel is unrecoverable forever.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
That is the takeaway. Ships are not lost when the sea strikes them. They are lost when the salvage window closes. Sometimes that is measured in hours, sometimes in minutes, and sometimes before the crew even realizes it has slipped away. The lesson, seared into maritime history again and again, is brutally simple. Act fast, or watch the ocean claim another giant. When a U.S. Navy ship suffers an accident, loses equipment, or requires sensitive salvage, the operation that follows becomes an instant point of attention for adversaries. They do not watch casually. They track every movement, every vessel dispatched, and every hour of progress in real time. To them, a recovery mission is not a routine logistical exercise. It is a rare opportunity to peer inside the operational core of the world's most powerful navy. The stakes are enormous because each recovery is both a vulnerability and a revelation. What the U.S. is trying to protect, retrieve, or conceal instantly becomes a target for foreign intelligence services determined to exploit the moment. Their focus, a finely tuned instrument of espionage, is now aimed directly at our operational realities. Communication protocols between air, surface, and subsurface teams during marine recovery operations are highly structured to ensure timely, clear, and reliable coordination across different domains. This is the thin line separating order from chaos, survival from tragedy, and success from catastrophic loss. Every second is a test of human endurance, technological capability, and trust in these invisible threads of communication that bind teams across air, surface, and deep ocean. When a distress call is received and assets are deployed, the clock begins ticking. Aircraft circle overhead, surface vessels maneuver into position, and beneath the waves, submarines or remotely operated vehicles prepare to dive into darkness. Each of these domains speaks its own language: radio frequencies in the air, VHF chatter on the decks, and acoustic pulses echoing through the depths. Without a structured system to fuse them, the mission fragments. With it, the mission becomes a synchronized ballet where every move counts. The structure is the communication protocol, a deliberately designed escalation of channels, frequencies, and technologies that ensures no message is lost, no signal misunderstood, and no order delayed. Their listening posts, designed for chaos, are deaf to the structure that ensures our survival. At the core are radio frequency bands. Aircraft and surface vessels rely on VHF, UHF, and HF communications, each chosen for a purpose. VHF offers clarity over line-of-sight distances, which is vital for aircraft guiding ships during search grids or for helicopters relaying hoist operations. UHF allows for broader military interoperability, while HF, bouncing off the ionosphere, extends reach beyond the horizon. A search aircraft scanning a wide ocean can remain in contact with command centers hundreds of miles away while still coordinating closely with a surface vessel directing rescue boats. Every phrase transmitted follows strict standardization, short, unambiguous, and rehearsed. Because in the noise of a storm or the roar of an aircraft rotor, clarity is everything. We do not speak, we transmit. Beneath the surface, radio waves fail, and acoustic communication becomes the lifeline. Submarines, divers, and submersibles use systems like the Gertrude underwater telephone, which transmits voice as modulated sound through water. More advanced systems employ acoustic modems capable of sending not just voice, but limited data. The constraints are immense. Sound travels slower in water than in air, echoes distort signals, bandwidth is narrow, and interference is constant. Yet these channels are the only way a submarine can coordinate with divers, attaching recovery cables, or with a remotely operated vehicle scanning wreckage in the dark. A misheard command could mean lost equipment, wasted hours, or worse, divers at risk. Their ears, trained for silence, are useless against the whispers of our deep-sea assets. Bridging air and sea with the subsurface requires ingenuity. That is where buoy-based relay systems play their role. A submarine too deep to raise its hull can release a tethered buoy equipped with antennas to capture and retransmit radio signals. From the perspective of the surface or the aircraft, communication continues seamlessly, even though the submarine remains invisible. The buoy is more than a technical trick. It is the physical proof of a submerged unit's presence and readiness to engage. For crews below, it is reassurance that their voices will not vanish unheard. Cutting-edge systems push this even further. Integrated cross-domain technologies now attempt to merge acoustic and radio systems. Underwater modems send signals upward, where specialized buoys or hybrid receivers translate them into radio frequency messages. Aircraft and surface ships then receive those messages as if from another radio unit. This bypasses many traditional delays and errors, offering the possibility of higher bandwidth and encrypted, more secure links. Though still experimental, these technologies signal a future where the gap between deep ocean and high sky is bridged almost seamlessly. In marine recovery, that could mean faster coordination, reduced risk, and saved lives. Their intelligence, searching for a single flaw, finds only a network without a single point of failure. Technology alone cannot guarantee success. What ensures survival is discipline. That is why standardized protocols and codes exist. Every team From a helicopter pilot to a diver attaching lifting straps, follows established naval communication codes and IMO-approved marine signaling language. These standards strip messages down to essentials, minimizing ambiguity. Instead of free-flowing conversation, communication becomes compressed into known formats: call signs, position reports, status updates, and distress codes. The language of the operation becomes a shared dictionary that eliminates misunderstandings, especially when multiple nationalities or mixed military-civilian crews are involved. In tense moments, when divers are nearing oxygen limits or a helicopter is low on fuel, no one can afford misinterpretation. Beyond the tactical links lies the strategic backbone: satellite communication. Satellites carry the broader coordination, linking command centers ashore with the dispersed units across sea and sky. Through satellite uplinks, operational headquarters can monitor unfolding recovery efforts in real time, adjusting the deployment of reinforcements or medical teams. This is not a luxury, but a necessity, especially when recovery operations span hundreds of miles in remote ocean zones where no shore-based stations exist. Satellite communication also allows civilian authorities, allied navies, and international rescue frameworks to connect, ensuring unity of command despite geographic dispersal. All of this flows into command and control systems. These are not single radios, but entire frameworks where incoming information is filtered, prioritized, and dispatched to the right recipients. Command centers manage frequency allocation, prevent channel congestion, and ensure the critical message always cuts through. This may mean temporarily silencing non-essential traffic so that a distress update from a submersible can pass instantly to a helicopter crew preparing for extraction. It may mean enforcing communication silence at crucial phases to prevent acoustic interference with sonar mapping. The structure is strict because structure is survival. The stakes could not be higher. Imagine a recovery operation after an aircraft has gone down at sea. Aircraft mark the search pattern, surface vessels deploy small boats, and divers or remotely operated vehicles prepare to descend. Now picture a breakdown. An aircraft calls in survivor coordinates, but interference scrambles the numbers. A submarine attempts to relay sonar findings, but without a buoy, the message cannot reach the surface. Divers wait for the go-ahead, but hear only static. Minutes slip by, and the opportunity to save lives slips with them. This is why communication protocols are not theoretical. They are the difference between a mission remembered for its precision or one remembered for its failure. They were listening for a whisper of chaos, and all they heard was the roar of order. There is also a profound psychological layer. Crews trust that, when they speak, someone hears. Pilots descending into a storm trust the voice guiding them is clear. Divers beneath crushing pressure trust their updates reach the surface. That trust is the invisible bond sustaining morale. Without it, hesitation sets in. With it, courage holds. Protocols are not just wires and waves. They are the architecture of confidence binding air, sea, and depth into one team. Beyond operational success lies legality and accountability. Structured communication ensures compliance with international maritime law and the conventions of the International Maritime Organization. Every transmission can be logged and every decision traced. In the aftermath, whether lives were saved or lost, these records testify that procedures were followed, responsibilities respected, and coordination upheld. This shields crews from unjust blame, while also providing lessons for future operations. Structured protocols are both shield and mirror, protecting today and preparing for tomorrow. Marine recovery operations are some of the most demanding missions humanity undertakes. They force collaboration between the highest sky and the darkest depth, between aircraft streaking above and submersibles crawling below. The only thing uniting them is communication. Highly structured, disciplined, layered, and resilient against chaos. Radio frequencies carving clarity into the air, acoustic pulses stitching order into the water, and buoys and satellites bridging the impossible gaps. Codes and protocols eliminate doubt. Command systems orchestrate it all with ruthless efficiency. This is the anatomy of survival in the unforgiving expanse of the ocean. The lesson is stark. Without structured communication protocols, recovery operations would collapse into noise, confusion, and loss. With them, they transform into demonstrations of human discipline and ingenuity, proving that even across domains divided by physics itself, air, surface, and subsurface, unity is possible. In every successful recovery, what is rescued is not just lives or wreckage, but the fragile belief that in the harshest environments, coordination can still triumph. Structured communication is not background detail. It is the very heartbeat of marine recovery operations. A classified aircraft crashes into the ocean, carrying advanced systems worth billions and secrets worth even more. The wreck sinks into the depths, but the mission to recover it has already begun. What the world will never see is the battle that follows, not against waves or depth, but against time, rivals, and the invisible eyes of those who want to know exactly what is being pulled from the sea. This is why secrecy is the lifeline of high-value naval recovery operations. Without it, missions that protect national security, preserve technological advantages, and shield lives could unravel before they even start. We do not operate in the open. We operate beyond their reach. National security lies at the heart of every recovery. Naval salvage operations don't deal with ordinary wreckage. They often involve sensitive technologies like radar arrays, encrypted communication systems, or even nuclear materials. Allowing adversaries to learn the location of these assets, or worse, to interfere, could mean handing over decades of research and billions in defense investment. Secrecy keeps those advantages intact. Without strict control of information, rivals would seize the chance to track, intercept, or reverse engineer the very systems that give a nation its edge at sea. A single leak can undo years of technological superiority, and that risk is never taken lightly. Operational security, known as OPSEC, makes secrecy a non-negotiable rule. Recovery missions are complex, often involving multiple ships, specialized diving teams, and advanced equipment like submersibles and cranes. Every movement is a vulnerability, and every transmission is a potential beacon to hostile forces. If adversaries know when and where a mission is happening, they can sabotage it, disrupt it, or simply observe it, gathering intelligence on techniques and technologies. Keeping the operation hidden ensures that every step, from planning to execution, is shielded from interference. Silence on the surface means safety below. They search for our weaknesses, and we give them nothing but a vast, empty expanse. The stakes are not just theoretical, they are strategic. Recovery targets often include advanced weaponry, missiles, and critical sensors. Losing these to the deep is bad enough, but losing them into the hands of rivals would be catastrophic. Imagine a foreign power salvaging stealth technology from a downed aircraft, or extracting nuclear components from a sunken submarine. With enough time, they could dismantle, study, and replicate systems designed to be state secrets. Secrecy prevents this chain of disaster. By moving swiftly and silently, naval forces recover their own assets before anyone else can. The logic is simple. What is hidden cannot be stolen. Diplomatic consequences make secrecy even more urgent. Salvage operations rarely take place in neutral waters. They happen in disputed zones, contested seas, or areas of sensitive political tension. Publicly acknowledging a recovery effort risks sparking diplomatic fallout, accusations of treaty violations, or outright escalation. Conducting the mission in silence avoids these traps. If no one knows where or when it is happening, there is no incident to react to, no scandal to ignite. Secrecy buys political stability, preventing operations designed to secure assets from becoming flashpoints for conflict. Safety, too, depends on silence. Recovery teams and vessels are most vulnerable when they are focused on lifting wreckage from the ocean floor. They are stationary, occupied, and often loaded with sensitive equipment that cannot be abandoned quickly. Broadcasting their mission would turn them into targets for hostile forces, terrorists, or even opportunistic pirates. By restricting information, navies shield their people from attack during their most exposed moments. Secrecy, in this sense, is not just about hiding technology. It is about protecting lives. Financial and political stakes also weigh heavily. The cost of recovery operations can run into hundreds of millions of dollars. The political implications of failure or delay can damage governments, fuel opposition, or destabilize markets. By keeping operations quiet, naval forces control the narrative. They prevent speculation, avoid public pressure, and eliminate the chance for rivals to exploit perceived weakness. Only once the mission is complete, if at all, does information emerge, shaped carefully to protect confidence and authority. Secrecy, therefore, is as much about managing perception as it is about protecting assets. Every successful mission underscores the same truth. Secrecy is a form of defense. In 1974, for example, the CIA conducted Project Azorian, a covert operation to raise a sunken Soviet submarine from the Pacific. The mission used a specially built ship disguised as a mining vessel, and its details remained hidden for decades. That secrecy wasn't optional. It was essential. Without it, the Soviets would have had every reason to interfere, escalating a recovery into a confrontation. The lesson is clear. When the stakes involve nuclear warheads and advanced systems, silence is the only shield strong enough. What took them years to sink, we raised without a sound. Identity plays a powerful role in how these missions are conducted. For the sailors, divers, and engineers involved, secrecy isn't a burden. It is a badge of responsibility. They know they are entrusted with protecting national secrets, often without recognition or acknowledgement. Their silence is an act of loyalty, and their discretion is part of a larger duty. For the public, secrecy may feel frustrating, but it reflects something deeper: the reassurance that some of the nation's most sensitive defenses are guarded not just by steel and firepower, but by discipline and control. Urgency drives the entire process. The sea is not static. Currents move wreckage, storms disrupt sites, and rivals close in. Every hour counts. The faster a recovery is completed, the less time there is for interference, detection, or loss of critical material. Secrecy amplifies this urgency by ensuring operations can proceed without external pressure, without diplomatic delays, and without adversaries watching every move. In this race against time, secrecy is the difference between success and failure, between recovering a strategic asset and losing it forever. Yet the power of secrecy is also its paradox. To outsiders, silence can seem suspicious, a sign that something is being hidden from the public. But in naval recovery operations, secrecy isn't about withholding truth. It is about preventing disaster. It is not secrecy for secrecy's sake, but a deliberate, strategic choice to protect lives, assets, and stability. In the high-stakes world of maritime operations, transparency can kill. Silence saves. The emotional closure of these missions often comes quietly. When a recovery is completed, there is no parade, no headlines. The public may never know what was lifted from the seabed, what secrets were saved, or what risks were avoided. But for those who carried out the operation, the knowledge is enough. They know that their silence preserved an advantage, shielded lives, and kept potential crises from ever reaching the surface. That is the lasting truth. Secrecy is not an accessory to naval recovery operations. It is their foundation. Without secrecy, national security unravels, strategic assets vanish, and political stability fractures. With it, missions succeed quietly, lives are protected, and technological advantages endure. Secrecy is the invisible armor of the fleet, the force that ensures what sinks into the sea does not sink into the hands of those who should never have it. They track our losses, yet our victories are a classified mystery. When a naval vessel is crippled, burning, or on the verge of capture, the steel hull is no longer just a war machine, it becomes a vault. Inside that vault may be encrypted communication suites, advanced radar arrays, nuclear propulsion secrets, or weapons guidance systems that adversaries would pay any price to obtain. In those moments, Naval Command does not have the luxury of sentiment. The calculation is brutal. Is the technology aboard too sensitive to leave behind? And if so, How quickly can it be destroyed or removed before the enemy claims it? That decision is made through a rigorous multi-factor assessment, and the weight of it can determine not only the fate of a ship, but the security of entire nations. The first and most immediate factor is classification and security level. Not all technology is equal in value. A damaged radar antenna may not warrant extraordinary measures, but a cryptographic key module or a next-generation missile guidance computer can mean the difference between maintaining a strategic edge and handing adversaries a blueprint of naval dominance. Commanders assess the classification of each system: confidential, secret, top secret, and the degree to which its exposure would compromise national security. Sensitive technology tied to nuclear propulsion, stealth coatings, or electronic warfare receives the highest priority. The classification itself becomes a triage system, guiding decisions on what must be protected at all costs. Yet classification alone does not decide. Risk of capture or compromise is the next critical calculation. A burning ship in open waters may sink into depths too extreme for easy salvage, but in shallow seas, close to enemy shores, the danger of recovery by hostile divers or salvage crews is real. Command weighs adversary capabilities. Do they have submarines, submersibles, or cutting-edge salvage equipment? How close are they, and how long would it take them to arrive? A technology's secrecy means nothing if it rests intact in waters the enemy controls. Thus, the proximity of adversaries and their known intelligence collection methods weigh heavily in the calculation. Their salvage crews arrive with tools, only to discover we brought the demolition charges. Operational impact looms over every decision. Even if an enemy cannot recover sensitive equipment quickly, the mere loss of a system may cripple naval effectiveness. If abandoning the vessel strips a fleet of its unique electronic warfare suite or leaves a carrier strike group blind to certain threats, the mission itself may collapse. Operational planners must ask, can we continue the mission without this system? Would losing it alter regional power balances? And would allies be placed at risk if we abandon it? These questions are not academic. They determine whether the order becomes evacuate or scuttle. Feasibility of removal or destruction is the next layer, and here, time and crew safety become decisive. Sensitive systems are often designed with destruct mechanisms, hard drives that can be wiped, modules that can be shattered, and explosives that can be triggered to melt circuitry. But not all systems can be destroyed instantly. Removing or demolishing them may expose sailors to fire, flooding, or enemy fire. Naval command balances the urgency of destruction against the risk to lives. Can sailors safely reach the compartment? Can demolition charges be armed under fire? Can equipment be offloaded onto rescue vessels? If the answer is no, command may choose the harsher but safer path. Complete scuttling of the ship to take everything down with it. Environmental and tactical considerations shape the decision further. Some technology cannot be left behind not only for secrecy, but because of the environmental devastation it could cause. Nuclear reactors, missile warheads, or hazardous propulsion materials present dangers far beyond intelligence leaks. Leaving such systems in contested waters risks ecological disaster, political fallout, and long-term instability. Similarly, the tactical implications matter. Leaving a disabled vessel afloat may reveal vulnerabilities in armor, propulsion, or design. Destroying it denies the enemy the opportunity to study weaknesses and adjust strategies. Every calculation weighs not only today's mission, but tomorrow's battlefield. They seek a trophy. We give them a crater. Behind these decisions lie command guidance and protocols. Navies do not improvise in chaos. They train relentlessly for it. Manuals dictate thresholds for destruction, intelligence officers advise on adversary capabilities, and technical experts guide on which systems must be prioritized. In moments of crisis, these protocols compress years of preparation into seconds of action. A commander's decision is backed by the combined authority of security agencies, intelligence bureaus, and engineering teams. This structure prevents hesitation, ensuring that even under fire, the response is decisive. Cost-benefit and strategic priorities close the loop. Not every piece of sensitive equipment can be saved, nor should every resource be risked. Command weighs what is worth preserving and what can be sacrificed. Sometimes, saving sailors' lives outweighs any technological loss. Other times, the broader strategic cost of allowing technology to fall into enemy hands justifies extreme measures, including sacrificing the vessel itself. Decisions are framed not in isolation, but in the context of global strategy. Will abandoning this system shift power balances in a contested region? Will destroying it safeguard future missions for years to come? These are the scales on which command balances action. The methods of denial are as ruthless as the logic. Scuttling, deliberately sinking the ship, is the oldest and often the most effective option. Charges may be set to rupture the hull, fires may be allowed to consume critical compartments, or valves may be opened to flood machinery spaces. In modern practice, disabling electronics is a rapid solution. Hard drives smashed, encryption modules burned, and communication arrays shredded by thermite grenades. Some systems include built-in self-destruct mechanisms designed to obliterate hardware at the flip of a switch. In extreme cases, crew may deploy demolition charges specifically carried for such contingencies. The principle is unyielding. If the ship cannot be saved, its secrets cannot be left behind. The urgency of these choices builds immense psychological pressure. Sailors know that in abandoning their ship, they are leaving behind not just steel, but years of labor, pride, and identity. Commanders feel the crushing weight of deciding whether to preserve human life or technological advantage, but the clarity of protocols helps strip away doubt. The calculus is simple, even if painful. Secrets must not fall into enemy hands. In the crucible of combat, hesitation can mean decades of research handed to adversaries. Decisive destruction, however brutal, ensures that the sacrifice of a ship does not translate into strategic defeat. They get nothing from our losses, but the cold satisfaction of watching us deny them. History is filled with examples. Crews of damaged submarines have destroyed codebooks before surfacing. Warships scuttled in harbors denied enemies their prize. During conflicts, sensitive radar systems and encrypted communication gear were burned or smashed to shards rather than risk capture. Each case reveals the same principle. Technology may be priceless, but it is never left for the enemy. In the modern era, this process has only grown sharper. As systems integrate artificial intelligence, advanced encryption, and stealth coatings, the risks of exposure multiply. A single captured module could compromise entire fleets. Thus, the protocols have evolved. Faster destruction mechanisms, more portable encryption hardware, and more comprehensive salvage denial plans. What remains unchanged is the core question: is the technology too sensitive to leave behind? That question drives every order given when a ship is lost. The weight of this assessment underscores a truth often hidden from public view. War at sea is not only a clash of weapons, but a clash of secrets. The fate of a damaged vessel is decided not solely by whether it can be saved, but by whether its secrets can be denied. Naval Command calculates with ruthless precision, balancing classification, risk, impact, feasibility, environment, and strategy. And when the decision is made, the ship becomes more than a casualty. It becomes a final act of control, ensuring that even in loss, advantage is preserved. In the end, the process is about survival on two levels: the survival of the crew and the survival of national security. Ships may be rebuilt, steel may be reforged, but secrets once lost cannot be reclaimed. That is why Naval Command calculates with such rigor, why scuttling orders are given without hesitation, and why the destruction of sensitive technology is treated as victory even in the face of defeat. The sea may swallow the ship, but it will not swallow the secrets it carried. Towing a half-sunk ship across hostile waters is one of the most dangerous and complex tasks in maritime operations, a mission that demands a perfect balance of engineering, coordination, and raw courage. At first glance, it might seem like a straightforward job: attach a line, pull the wreck to safety. But the reality is a logistical nightmare where every mile towed is a battle against collapsing steel, unpredictable seas, and lurking threats. The ship is already wounded, fighting to stay afloat, and the waters are hostile, filled with hazards both natural and man-made. The crews involved know that one mistake, one failed weld, one overlooked leak, one miscalculated wave, can turn the operation into disaster. We do not simply recover a vessel, we wrestle a ghost from the jaws of the ocean. The first enemy in this struggle is structural instability. A ship that is already half sunk is a ship on the edge of breaking apart. Its hull may be twisted, cracked, or flooded in sections that were never designed to take such stress. When a tow line pulls against this compromised structure, it doesn't just drag, it strains, bends, and threatens to tear the vessel in half. Salvage teams often have to reinforce the ship before towing, welding steel plates over ruptured areas or bracing internal compartments to keep them from collapsing. But these are temporary fixes. The crew knows that the wounded vessel is fragile, that at any moment the forces of the tow could rip open its seams. The tow line itself becomes a test of endurance, pulling a broken body across miles of unforgiving ocean. Maintaining buoyancy and stability becomes the second battlefield. The damaged ship has already taken on water, its balance shifted, and its center of gravity unstable. Waves that would be manageable for a healthy vessel can become deadly triggers for capsize. Crews deploy pumps to remove seawater, ballast carefully to counter flooding, and sometimes use massive inflatable lift bags to restore buoyancy. Every adjustment is precise because an overcorrection could send the ship listing violently to the other side. The struggle is constant because the ocean never stops moving, never stops testing the weakened hull. A sudden squall or an unexpected swell can undo hours of delicate work, flooding compartments and threatening to send the vessel under before it reaches safety. To pull such a vessel requires specialized equipment and extraordinary power. Ordinary tugboats are not enough. The job demands highly maneuverable salvage tugs equipped with dynamic positioning systems, capable of holding exact positions in rough seas. These vessels are designed to endure heavy tow loads and counteract unpredictable movements of the damaged ship. Steel tow cables thicker than a human arm are deployed, shackled to reinforced points welded onto the stricken hull. The physics are brutal. Every surge of the sea translates into crushing forces along the tow line, testing metal and machinery to their limits. The tugs must not only pull, they must control, guiding the wreck with delicate precision through waters that want nothing more than to swallow it. And these waters are not neutral. In hostile regions, every nautical mile carries the threat of attack. Mines may drift unseen beneath the surface, submarines may lurk in the depths, and small fast boats may lie in wait. A half-sunk vessel under tow is a tempting target, slow, vulnerable, and unable to defend itself. That is why naval escorts often flank the tow, destroyers and patrol craft forming a shield against threats. Aircraft circle above, scanning for danger. The route is chosen not for speed, but for security, weaving through guarded corridors where the risk is lowest. But even with protection, the tension never lifts. Every radar contact could be hostile, every distant wake a potential ambush. The crews know that they are not just fighting the sea, they are fighting enemies eager to finish what the water started. Amidst these dangers, communication and coordination are lifelines. The towing tug, the damaged ship, the escorts, and the distant command centers must operate as one body. Every adjustment of tow speed, every course change, and every mechanical failure is relayed instantly across multiple channels. Salvage crews aboard the damaged vessel work in constant contact with engineers on the tug, their lives dependent on synchronized actions. A miscommunication here could be fatal. If the tug accelerates before the crew secures a line, if the escorts change course without warning, the tow could snap, the ship could roll, and lives could be lost. The operation functions like a symphony under constant strain, where every missed note threatens catastrophe. The enemy waits for the mistake. We deny them the opportunity. All the while, another threat lurks, the environment itself. A half-sunk ship often leaks oil, fuel, or hazardous cargo as it limps across the ocean. Each slick on the water is a warning, a reminder that the vessel is bleeding into the sea. Salvage crews deploy booms to contain spills, skim oil from the surface, and prepare contingency plans in case the ship breaks apart entirely. They know that if the worst happens, they are not just losing steel, they are unleashing pollution that could devastate ecosystems and trigger international outrage. Environmental responsibility weighs heavily, adding yet another layer of pressure to an already impossible mission. For the crews involved, the danger is personal. Salvage workers live on the knife's edge, welding plates in storm conditions, patching leaks while water surges beneath their feet, and standing watch over pumps that never stop running. Fatigue becomes an enemy as relentless as the sea. Shifts stretch long, adrenaline wears thin, and exhaustion creeps in. The men and women aboard these ships must endure both the physical strain of labor and the psychological weight of constant risk. They know that the ocean shows no mercy to the tired. Weather looms as the great unpredictable force. Forecasts are studied obsessively, routes altered to avoid storms, but nature does not always play by the rules. A tow that begins in calm seas can be thrown into chaos by sudden gales or rogue waves. The forces on the tow line spike unpredictably, threatening to snap cables or drag tugs off course. Storms strip away the illusion of control, reminding crews that no amount of preparation can master the sea entirely. In these moments, survival depends on experience, instinct, and sheer endurance. Salvage operations that seemed stable one day can teeter on collapse the next, forcing hard choices between pressing forward and abandoning the mission. Overlaying all these challenges are legal and diplomatic obstacles. Towing a wreck through international or disputed waters requires permissions, clearances, and compliance with complex maritime law. Coastal nations may demand guarantees of environmental safety or refuse passage altogether. In politically volatile regions, even a salvage tow can become a flashpoint, raising accusations of trespass or exploitation. Commanders must navigate not only the sea but also the labyrinth of bureaucracy and diplomacy. A misstep here can stall the mission as effectively as a broken tow line, trapping the ship in limbo while paperwork drags on. When seen together, these challenges form a picture of extraordinary complexity. Towing a half-sunk vessel across hostile waters is not one problem, but a convergence of many. Engineering, environmental, operational, political, and human. Each layer compounds the others, creating a mission where failure can erupt from any direction. And yet, against these odds, such missions succeed. Ships are salvaged, cargo is saved, and disasters are averted not because the challenges vanish, but because crews rise to meet them with meticulous planning, robust equipment, and relentless focus. The deeper truth is that these missions reveal the limits of control and the strength of human determination. They show how fragile a ship becomes when wounded, how ruthless the ocean can be when tested, and how vulnerable even the most advanced technology is under pressure. But they also show the resilience of the people who take on the impossible. Engineers who reinforce broken hulls, sailors who steer tugs through storms, divers who risk their lives to patch leaks, and commanders who coordinate fleets across hostile seas. Every successful tow is not just a technical victory, it is a testament to human will against forces that seem insurmountable. We do not bargain with the elements, we simply refuse to lose. In the end, towing a half-sunk ship through hostile waters is not merely about saving steel or cargo. It is about proving that even when the sea conspires with enemies, when machinery fails and politics complicate, human ingenuity and endurance can still find a way. The mission is never easy, never safe, and never certain. But every mile towed is a defiance of collapse, a refusal to surrender to the ocean's hunger. And that defiance, repeated ship after ship, becomes its own kind of victory. When people think of maritime disasters, they imagine storms, sinking ships, or lives lost at sea. But the most expensive failed recovery in recent US history wasn't about cargo lost to the ocean. It was about the astronomical cost of trying to bring one ship back and failing. The wreck was the MV Golden Ray, a 200-meter roll-on roll-off car carrier that capsized off the coast of Brunswick, Georgia in September 2019. What followed was not just a salvage operation, but a years-long saga of technical struggle, environmental risk, and mounting financial disaster. By the time the wreck was fully cleared, the price tag had surpassed $1 billion, making it the single most expensive ship salvage and failed recovery in U.S. maritime history. The MV Golden Ray had just departed with over 4,200 vehicles on board when disaster struck. Within minutes of leaving port, the vessel rolled onto its side in shallow waters. All 23 crew members were rescued, but the ship itself was unsalvageable in its original form. This was not a question of repair. The ship was effectively lost the moment it capsized. But leaving it in place was impossible. The wreck blocked a major waterway, threatened local ecosystems, and posed a long-term hazard. What ensued was an operation that would become infamous for its scale, delays, and cost. A billion-dollar lesson in the brutal reality of the sea. The salvage effort centered on one colossal task: cutting the ship into 8 massive sections, each weighing thousands of tons, and removing them piece by piece. To do this, contractors brought in the VB-10,000, one of the largest heavy-lift vessels in the world. It used a giant chain, looped under the hull, to slice through the steel like a saw. On paper, it was a bold but achievable plan. In practice, it became a nightmare. The ship's weight, the cargo still inside, and the compromised structure made every cut unpredictable. What was supposed to be an engineering triumph turned into a drawn-out struggle against rust, fire, storms, and contamination. Environmental challenges quickly compounded the difficulty. The Golden Ray was loaded with fuel oil, lubricants, and thousands of cars, each carrying fluids like gasoline and antifreeze. As salvage teams worked, leaks spread into the water. Containment booms had to be deployed constantly, yet slicks still reached nearby marshlands. Fires ignited inside the wreck during cutting operations, forcing delays and emergency responses. Each environmental incident didn't just slow progress, it raised costs exponentially, as every extra precaution and cleanup required more manpower, equipment, and time. The delays mounted. Salvage operations stretched across years rather than months. Hurricanes and seasonal storms battered the worksite, halting cutting operations and damaging equipment. Each delay meant more costs, crews to be paid, vessels to remain on standby, and equipment to be maintained. The original estimates for the recovery were blown apart. By the midpoint of the operation, it was clear that the salvage would cost hundreds of millions more than anticipated. By the end, the figure topped $1 billion. This colossal expense makes the Golden Ray stand apart. Even compared to other famous recoveries, its cost is unmatched in U.S. waters. Project Azorian, the CIA's secret attempt to recover a sunken Soviet submarine in the 1970s, cost around $800 million, equivalent to several billion today. But while that project was at least a partial success, the Golden Ray was a total loss. The ship was dismantled and scrapped. Nothing of value was recovered intact. The money was spent purely on removal, with no return other than clearing the wreck. The lesson here is brutal. Once a ship of that size goes down in the wrong location, salvage becomes less about saving assets and more about mitigating disaster. Every day the Golden Ray remained in the channel was a day of economic and environmental risk. Brunswick's port is a major hub for automobile imports and exports. Leaving the wreck in place would have crippled trade and disrupted regional commerce. So the billion-dollar cost was not just about the wreck. It was about keeping global trade flowing, no matter the expense. From an economic perspective, the numbers are hard to swallow. A vessel worth a few hundred million caused a wreck removal more than triple its value. Insurance companies absorbed a significant portion, but costs rippled across multiple sectors. Shipping firms faced higher premiums, salvage contractors strained budgets, and taxpayers bore indirect environmental and economic fallout. What was once a single ship accident became a shared financial burden across industries. There is also the emotional impact on the salvage crews themselves. These were some of the most skilled maritime recovery teams in the world, and yet the job pushed them to their limits. working inside a wreck full of oil, steel, and wrecked vehicles while battling fires and leaks tested both endurance and morale. Each failure, each delay, each spill reminded them how unforgiving salvage can be. No matter how advanced the tools, the ocean and gravity had the final word. The failed recovery of the MV Golden Ray now stands as a case study in the limits of salvage operations. It illustrates that not every wreck can be turned into a recovery success story, and that sometimes the best that can be done is containment and removal at staggering cost. It also underscores the financial fragility of maritime commerce. A single accident in the wrong place can trigger expenses dwarfing the ship's value, forcing industries and governments into damage control spending that spirals into billions. The comparison to other salvage efforts only highlights this reality. The Golden Ray exceeded not just typical wreck removals, but also historically significant operations. Its $1 billion plus cost makes it the most expensive failed recovery in U.S. maritime history. And while projects like Azorian carry intrigue and espionage, the Golden Ray offers a more sobering truth. Failure at sea is not always about lost secrets or treasure. It is about enormous costs borne to prevent wider disaster. The takeaway is clear. Modern shipping relies on enormous vessels carrying enormous risks. When something goes wrong, salvage is no longer about saving a ship. It becomes about preventing catastrophe, keeping trade routes open, and protecting fragile coastlines. The MV Golden Ray proved that even with the best technology, the best equipment, and the best crews, some recoveries end not in triumph, but in loss. And the price of that loss can exceed $1 billion. The ocean's triumph was total, but its victory was purchased at an unimaginable price. In the end, the wreck of the MV Golden Ray is more than a maritime accident. It is a reminder of the thin line between control and chaos in global shipping. The ship's capsizing was over in minutes, but the recovery consumed years and drained over $1 billion. The failure was not just the loss of a vessel, it was the exposure of just how costly and fragile recovery can be when the ocean decides to hold on. When a U.S. Navy ship suffers an accident, loses equipment, or requires sensitive salvage, the operation that follows becomes an instant point of attention for adversaries. They do not watch casually. They track every movement, every vessel dispatched, every hour of progress in real time. To them, a recovery mission is not a routine logistical exercise. It is a rare opportunity to peer inside the operational core of the world's most powerful navy. The stakes are enormous, because each recovery is both a vulnerability and a revelation. What the U.S. is trying to protect, retrieve, or conceal instantly becomes a target for foreign intelligence services determined to exploit the moment. The most obvious reason is intelligence gathering. Salvage operations are windows into naval capabilities that would otherwise remain hidden. When adversaries monitor the ships, cranes, submersibles, and procedures involved in recovery, they gain insight into the limits of U.S. technology. How deep can our divers operate? What kind of remotely operated vehicles are deployed? How quickly can we mobilize specialized salvage ships? These details, insignificant on their own, accumulate into a comprehensive picture of strength and weakness. For rival navies, such information is gold. It helps them understand what the U.S. can do in crises, and more importantly, where the U.S. may be vulnerable. Technology acquisition is another powerful incentive. Recovery missions often involve damaged ships, lost aircraft, or sensitive equipment lying on the seafloor. Even fragments of radar arrays, missile components, or classified sensors are valuable to adversaries who can study or reverse engineer them. By tracking operations in real time, they hope to predict when and where sensitive items might surface, increasing their chance of intercepting intelligence or launching their own covert recovery. History is full of such attempts, moments when rivals raced to retrieve crashed aircraft or sunken vessels before the Americans could. The mere presence of U.S. salvage ships signals that something worth protecting is in play. drawing adversarial focus like sharks sensing blood in the water. They get to watch, but they never get to touch. Operational awareness adds another layer. Recovery missions reveal not only what the Navy can do, but where its priorities lie. The number of ships deployed, the distance they are pulled from other assignments, and the duration of operations. All these data points tell adversaries how the U.S. allocates resources under stress. If a carrier strike group is diverted to protect a salvage, that creates gaps elsewhere. If naval patrols concentrate around one operation, other areas are left with reduced coverage. Monitoring these choices helps adversaries plan their own moves, exploiting weaknesses created by the temporary U.S. focus on recovery. Every operation tracked in real time is a map of American priorities, and every map can be turned against them. The psychological dimension cannot be underestimated. Adversaries know that high-profile recoveries are closely watched by allies, rivals, and the public. By showcasing their ability to track these operations, they project power. They spread propaganda suggesting that U.S. actions are not secret, not safe, and not beyond reach. The message is clear. We see you, even when you try to hide. This undermines the aura of invincibility surrounding U.S. naval power. It creates doubt, not only among adversaries who gain confidence, but among allies who may question whether American superiority is as unassailable as claimed. Propaganda thrives on visibility, and recovery missions provide the perfect stage. Some adversaries take the step further, preparing for interference. Tracking in real time allows them to ready electronic warfare, cyber intrusions, or even physical disruptions. A well-timed jamming effort could compromise communications. A cyber probe launched during recovery could target systems under stress. In extreme cases, the presence of shadowing vessels or submarines near an operation signals intent to challenge the U.S. directly. Even without firing a shot, interference complicates recovery, delays progress, and tests the Navy's ability to respond under pressure. Each tracked operation becomes a rehearsal ground for adversaries to practice harassment and contest U.S. dominance. All of this ties into the broader concept of maritime domain awareness. Recovery missions are not isolated. They alter the security dynamics of entire regions. When the U.S. moves specialized assets into contested waters to secure a wreck, adversaries perceive it as both a threat and an opportunity. They track these moves to assert their own influence, sending patrols or deploying surveillance to remind everyone that the seas are contested. Every operation is a flashpoint in the struggle for control, and adversaries exploit these moments to stake their claims. The U.S. may view recovery as protective. Rivals view it as a chance to assert presence and push back. The vulnerabilities of recovery operations magnify the importance of this tracking. Unlike combat missions, salvage efforts are reactive, often urgent, and sometimes improvisational. They reveal not the polished face of naval dominance, but the messy reality of mistakes, accidents, and crises. This is precisely why adversaries are so attentive. They do not want to see the U.S. Navy at its strongest. They want to see it under strain, stretched thin, and forced to reveal procedures usually kept secret. In those cracks, they search for opportunity. Their curiosity, a testament to their own strategic weakness, is a spotlight on our strength. Examples reinforce this truth. When aircraft crash into the sea, adversaries immediately scramble to detect where recovery assets are deployed. During submarine incidents, shadow vessels rush to the area, not only to monitor, but to probe the operation itself. Even in peacetime, the deployment of the U.S. Navy's salvage ships signals to the world that something of value lies beneath the waves. Adversaries track not just with satellites and drones, but with fishing vessels acting as surveillance platforms, submarines lurking nearby, and intelligence services monitoring communications. Real-time awareness is their weapon, and recovery operations are their targets. This relentless attention reveals a deeper truth. In modern conflict, information is as valuable as firepower. Adversaries understand that to outmatch the U.S. Navy in battle is almost impossible. But to watch it, learn from it, and slowly erode its advantages over time. that is achievable. Recovery operations are one of the few windows where this erosion can happen quickly. The Navy knows this, which is why salvage efforts are surrounded by secrecy, deception, and security. Yet secrecy only increases the curiosity of rivals, and the chase continues. For the sailors and specialists carrying out these missions, the knowledge that they are being watched adds another layer of pressure. They work not only against time, technology, and the ocean itself, but under the gaze of adversaries eager for them to fail. Every crane lift, every cable deployment, every sonar ping may be recorded, studied, and archived. Recovery becomes not just a mission to retrieve equipment, but a performance on a stage where the audience consists of rivals waiting for mistakes. The psychological weight is immense, and it underscores why these operations are guarded with such intensity. Ultimately, the obsession adversaries have with tracking recovery operations reveals the fragile intersection between vulnerability and power. To recover is to admit loss, however temporary, and in that admission, adversaries sense weakness. But to complete the operation successfully demonstrates resilience and technological superiority, reasserting dominance even in crisis. This is why the struggle over salvage is not simply about steel on the seafloor. It is about perception, intelligence, and control. Adversaries know it, the US knows it, and the world watches as the contest unfolds. In the end, every recovery operation becomes more than an attempt to retrieve what was lost. It becomes a contest of visibility, a race of awareness, and a test of will. Adversaries track these missions in real time, not only to gather intelligence, not only to acquire technology, but to prove to themselves and to the world that even the most powerful navy on Earth cannot move unseen. That is the true danger, not the wreck itself, but the knowledge that in the shadows of recovery, the balance of power is constantly being recalculated. Their surveillance, their constant vigil, is a tax on our momentary vulnerability.